While Raw and SmackDown have been struggling under Triple H and TKO, the hottest story of the year is quietly unfolding in Mexico, and it is led by none other than The Undertaker. Ever since the Deadman took over AAA, the product has exploded in popularity with quality storytelling across all fronts, from the tag divisions to the women's divisions and, of course, the epic El Grande Americano saga. With a hungry roster and his understanding of wrestling psychology and fundamentals, Taker has been able to make the audience care and turn AAA into the talk of the town, while the game has come nowhere close even with the big budgets and billion-dollar Netflix deal. So how did we get here? How did Taker make AAA more exciting than Raw and SmackDown? What does he understand about wrestling that Triple H doesn't? And how did the El Grande Americano saga impact this revolution? Let's find out. To understand what The Undertaker has built in AAA, you first have to understand what the landscape looked like before he walked in. When WWE announced its acquisition of AAA during WrestleMania 41 weekend, the immediate reaction from the wrestling world was a mix of excitement and dread. Excitement because the resources of a billion-dollar entertainment company were now being pointed at one of Mexico's most historic wrestling promotions. And dread because everyone had seen this movie before. In 2006, WWE promised that ECW would live again as a third brand. But within a year, the beloved hardcore wrestling product was turned into a watered-down house show. Fans were terrified AAA was next, and early on, those fears felt justified. WWE's initial instinct after the acquisition was to identify the most marketable name on the roster and force him to the top. That name was El Hijo del Vikingo. He had the in-ring skills, he looked good on camera, and he had the ingredients the corporate machine wanted to push to the Mexican audience. But the problem was that the Mexican fans did not want what WWE was selling. Despite everything Vikingo could do between the ropes, the crowds were rejecting him as a top babyface. It was giving flashbacks to 2015 Roman Reigns, a man being pushed to the summit, not because the audience was pulling him there, but because the office had decided he belonged there. And this is where Undertaker played his first move. According to the Wrestling Observer, Taker first appeared backstage at a AAA show in July 2025, initially scoping out the landscape. And his first major move as the lead creative voice was the kind of decision only someone with his instincts makes. He stopped trying to force what wasn't working. Vikingo was turned heel. If the crowd won't cheer you, you give them permission to boo you. It's a simple decision on paper, but it led to a ripple effect that changed the entire landscape of the product in less than a year. Taker added a 7-foot enforcer to loom behind Vikingo, making him genuinely dangerous and letting him embrace the crowd's boos instead of playing an awkward babyface. Then he handed the Mega Championship to Dominic Mysterio, the one name in AAA the crowd had absolutely hated and who was getting the loudest reactions. It was a simple switch, but in one move, AAA now had a top heat-generating champion the crowd desperately wanted to see get dethroned instead of a forced babyface, and it also allowed Vikingo to feed off the crowd's negative reaction instead of trying to ignore them. But now you might be wondering, if the guys at the top of AAA are all heels, where are the heroes? We'll get to that in just a moment, but before that, the first major event under Taker's creative leadership came on December 20th, 2025, which was a sellout of over 13,000 fans, with tickets distributed a full day in advance. Dave Meltzer compared it to CMLL's top Friday shows at Arena Mexico. In one event, the narrative around AAA had flipped entirely. Meanwhile, on the main roster, Triple H was failing drastically. When the game first took over, the product looked promising with CM Punk's return, the arrival of the Wyatt Six, the Bloodline saga, and Cody Rhodes finishing his story. But somewhere between then and now, a troubling pattern emerged. Triple H's greatest weakness as a booker is not that he makes bad decisions, it is that he books like a coward. He consistently identifies the right moment and then refuses to pull the trigger. LA Knight is the biggest example of this. From mid-2023 onward, Knight was arguably the most organically overperformer on the entire roster. Crowds were losing their minds for him every single week. But instead of pushing Knight as a legit main eventer, Triple H gave him a US Championship run that felt like a participation trophy, and by the time any real main event opportunity materialized, the momentum had already been slowed down. That's like giving Daniel Bryan a US title win at WrestleMania 30 instead of making him a world champion at the peak of his popularity. The same pattern played out with Gunther. WWE handed him wins over both John Cena and AJ Styles in retirement matches. Moments that should have cemented him as a generation-defining villain. Instead, there was no clear creative direction to follow it up. The rocket was lit and then nobody told it where to go. The result is a main roster that, as of 2026, feels like it is running on fumes. It keeps rehashing storylines and featuring the same guys on the top. The product isn't bad enough to be outrageous, not good enough to be unmissable. It's just endlessly mid. And that is the precise gap The Undertaker has exploited. While Triple H plays it safe in a billion-dollar machine, Taker has gone south of the border and built something that feels dangerous, alive, and unpredictable. And this brings us to the story that proves the difference between them better than anything else: the rise of El Grande Americano. The El Grande Americano story was originally born on Raw, and it was meant to be nothing more than a comedy gimmick. And yet it survived 2 real-life injuries, wild pivots, even an arrest, and produced one of the greatest matches of all time, drew over 2 million combined YouTube views within 4 days of airing, and turned 2 underutilized mid-carders into the most talked-about wrestlers today. The story started with a man losing his identity and running out of excuses. Chad Gable, the former Olympian and criminally underused singles talent, had been on a losing streak against luchadors in early 2025. Unable to beat the LWO, he embarked on a mission to learn the secrets of lucha libre, traveling to Mexico and returning in March 2025 as a masked luchador known as El Grande Americano. The gimmick was unambiguously a parody. Broken Spanish, an exaggerated costume draped in American flags, comedic origin videos. It was designed to be ridiculous. It was designed to last a few months, built to a WrestleMania match against Rey Mysterio, and quietly disappear after the mask came off. But then Rey Mysterio got injured. A few weeks later, Chad Gable got injured. And the character that should have died took a wild turn. In late June 2025, El Grande Americano returned to television noticeably taller, noticeably slimmer, and noticeably Ludwig Kaiser. Kaiser, who had spent years as Gunther's right hand in Imperium and was seemingly running out of fuel as a solo act, slipped under the mask and made a quiet decision that changed everything. He was not going to do what Gable did. He was going to do something nobody asked him to do and take it seriously. Kaiser learned Spanish. He embraced the Mexican culture. He scaled back the cartoonish costume elements and started presenting himself not as a foreigner mocking lucha libre, but as a foreigner seeking acceptance. That difference, which sounds small on paper, set into motion one of the greatest career revivals of modern wrestling. The OG Grande Americano said lucha libre was a joke. Ludwig's El Grande said lucha libre was sacred. Mexican fans knew the difference immediately, and by the end of 2025, Kaiser's El Grande Americano was one of the most beloved acts in AAA. He won the Rey de Reyes tournament, and in doing so became a hero to the Mexican audience. But then Gable returned at the 2026 Royal Rumble as the self-proclaimed original El Grande Americano, crashing Kaiser's party, setting up the collision that fans had been anticipating for months. A contract signing established the mask versus mask stipulation. Triple A ring announcer Andrea Basarde, Kaiser's real-life girlfriend, was written out of the show as part of the build, sacrificed so the match could happen. It was wrestling melodrama at its best. Then, 10 days before the match, Kaiser was arrested in Florida on misdemeanor charges following an elevator altercation. Reports circulated that an elderly man had made insulting comments towards his girlfriend, and Ludwig had defended her honor. WWE said nothing officially, but the internet exploded, and the audience's bond with El Grande Americano grew stronger. Instead of destroying the story, the incident made Kaiser untouchable in Mexico. His return appearance in Mexico City produced the kind of emotional reaction you cannot manufacture. On May 30th, 2026, in a sold-out Arena Monterrey, the 2 masked men collided. The crowd was red-hot. Every character from the entire storyline showed up. Kaiser hit the running headbutt to win. Gable removed his mask, confirmed what everyone already knew, gave the name to Kaiser, and walked out to a standing ovation. It's the kind of moment you cannot describe, you simply have to live it. 2 mid-carders, a dead-end gimmick, and the best wrestling story in years. The Undertaker did not invent any of those raw materials. What he did was recognize them, protect them, and build a stage worthy of them. That is the art of booking. The simplest way to understand the difference between The Undertaker and Triple H as creative minds is this. One of them books for the audience in front of him, and the other books for the audience he wishes he had. Triple H's WWE is built around a certain kind of wrestling fan, the informed, online, star-rating-obsessed viewer who wants technically pristine matches. The production is flawless. The presentation is premium. And yet you can sit through 3 hours of Raw and feel absolutely nothing because the shows feel manufactured and mundane. The Undertaker, on the other hand, is doing something far more rooted in wrestling tradition and far more dangerous. He is booking for heat. In his own words, Taker has been explicit about his philosophy. He said his vision is to almost take a step back to step forward. He is not interested in innovation for its own sake. He is interested in what has always worked. Clear heroes, clear villains, emotional stakes, and the patience to let all 3 develop before you cash them in. That sounds basic. It is basic. and it is exactly what Triple H's product has forgotten. In WWE, on the main roster, the babyface and heel dynamic has become completely blurry. Characters shift alignment without clear motivation. In AAA, the crowd never has to wonder who they're supposed to cheer and who they're supposed to boo. Dominic struts around with a title and the heat is immediate and personal. Vikingo turns heel and adds genuine menace to his persona. El Grande Americano sings a Mexican folk song in his first appearance and wins over a crowd that should have rejected him. These are not accidents. They are the results of a booker who understands that these emotions of love, hate, betrayal, pride, and honor are fundamental to wrestling. The match itself is the delivery mechanism, but the build-up and the story is what makes the match matter. Without them, it's just a bunch of athletic dudes doing gymnastics in the ring. What Undertaker demonstrates week after week in a single one-hour broadcast of AAA is that the fundamentals of professional wrestling are not outdated. They are timeless. That formula worked in the territory days. It worked in the Attitude Era. And it is working right now in Mexico in front of crowds so invested that fans have commissioned street murals and thrown pesos into the ring as a gesture of respect. Triple H inherited the most powerful wrestling company on earth and has produced something consistent, polished, but deeply mediocre. The Undertaker walked into a foreign promotion with a foreign language and produced the hottest wrestling storyline of the year just by focusing on the fundamentals of wrestling storytelling. One man is managing an empire. The other is doing what great bookers have always done, making people care.